I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper. It's up and down.
Welcome to Diceshaker Podcast. My name is Jordan Brown. I'm the host of the Diceshaker Podcast. With me, as always, the man behind the scenes, Tyler Hartley. Thank you, sir.
Let's go, Jordan. We got people watching this weekend.
We do.
Let's go.
We do. Big week in college football. Big week in the NFL. Big week for the boys. We're gonna get to it all. Probably a lot of new people watching here, so thank you. Rate, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. We're never charging for this. People have asked, are we just going behind a paywall? No, it's not. Diceshaker is for the people. It's always been for the people. Always will be for the people. But you got to tell people. That's the rules. We're gonna keep giving out picks, entertaining you guys, doing all that stuff. You got to tell people about it. So we're gonna start on Saturday. The first thing is we got back on track record-wise, man. Needed that. Went 6-5. We're not gonna celebrate. We're not gonna throw a parade for going 6-5. You know, like the standards are still the standards. But the percentage went up, went from 40 to 42. Starting to see things a little bit better in terms of just kind of the big teams and how they relate to one another. It's so hard in college football because the competition levels are so different between the teams and who they played and when they played them, all that different stuff. So it's very, very difficult to get a feel. We're going to have to figure out a better strategy for next year, but I think we're going to be able to salvage this year. I think, be able to break 52%. First one I want to start with, cash the personal challenge bet. That was a
high total.
That was New Mexico, Utah State. 77.5 was the total. Highest total I've seen this year. Had to see if I had it in me. I did. We cashed easy. That game ended up like close to 100. But it's just a crazy way to watch a football game.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, as you're watching that game, like getting, like, I don't know how long it took to cash that bet. I didn't watch the game personally.
It cashed early fourth quarter.
Like, just insane though to be like, oh man, we need 55 more points.
They scored early touchdown. I've never felt less getting a touchdown scored when I have the over. Like the first time they scored, I felt nothing. I knew I needed 10 more, and there's just panic. And listen, though that total was, again, we crushed it. It went way over. It went in the 90s. But like those teams they play so fast and they run so many plays and they have such bad defenses that like it is truly a match made in heaven for an over. So it wasn't as big of a sweat as it felt like. But again, it's just crazy to watch a game where literally it's just touchdowns every possession and you're not safe. It was I lived in fear of like missed extra points and. Anyway, crazy, cashed it. Felt great. I knew we were getting back on track when that one cashed. So felt really, really good about that. That was a fun way to go through that game. The big game that I want to get into in sort of details is obviously Georgia, Texas. Now I had Georgia plus 4.5. Georgia wins outright by 2 scores. So that also helped the confidence a lot, where it was a big time game that I read exactly right. Felt good about that. Old school Georgia performance, the type of thing that won them the back-to-back national championships, where they were frankly bad on offense. Like Carson Beck, their quarterback, came in as like, oh, maybe he's a Heisman guy, maybe he's a first overall pick guy. He's sucked this year. He's been bad. He was bad against Alabama, played decent in the second half, and then he cooked Mississippi State, which has the worst defense in the SEC, and then comes out against Texas, who their weakness, if you want to pick out, I mean, they may have more now, but coming into that game, if you want to say where's Texas vulnerable, you would say they're secondary. Well, they picked Beck off 3 times, and he had bad overthrows. He played bad. Did not matter because Georgia's defensive line dominated that game in a way that really we've only seen Georgia defensive lines do over the last 4 to 5 years. Credit to Kirby Smart, absolutely schemed him up. There's a really great clip out there of just some diabolical shit he did where he had basically 3 down linemen line up like they were going, like they're going to drop a bunch of guys in pass coverage. And then they timed the Texas snap count so perfectly that at the very last second, the D-line shifted, all the linebackers stepped up. It's now a 6-man front. They blitzed the shit out of them, and they timed it so perfect Texas didn't have any time to react. It was on a crucial third down. That is clearly something they thought about probably months and months and months ago. They planned specifically for it to pay off there. They got him with it, timed their snap count perfectly, got a sack. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job by that Georgia staff. And listen, man, Texas, I said going into that game, I did not feel good about Texas. That I do hate Texas with a burning passion, so I understand why people might have thought I was biased there. But like going into this game, they had not played anybody at all with a competent offense. Like their two biggest wins are against Michigan. They're on quarterback number 3 and stink, just lost to Illinois, and against Oklahoma, who we benched the quarterback, went to the freshman backup. Now he just shit the bed against South Carolina, so now we bench come back. We don't have a quarterback either. We're one of the worst offenses in the Power 4. So for Texas to come in being like, oh, we beat those two teams, it's like, yeah, okay, fine, they can't complete pass. And now, what's crazy about this game is Texas didn't play good on offense. So it wasn't that to beat them, it was the fact that Texas is supposed to have the best offensive line in college football. They have 2 tackles that are going to be first-round picks. One might be the first overall pick, and they got dominated by Georgia. Georgia's defensive line played fantastic. Is that a sustainable way for Georgia to play the rest of the season? Can they survive 3 picks from Carson Beck? Probably not. That'll probably end up biting them in the ass at some point. But I mean, the national title picture is wide open in college football. And not wide open because, like, realistically, like, how many teams could win it? You'd probably say, like, 5 or 6. But if you went back, I mean, a couple of years ago, you came into the season knowing there's 2 or 3 teams that can win.
I was going to say, like, I mean, I don't know much about college, but I know that. Like, that's, like, 5 or 6.
Right. It was Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State. Those are the teams that can win. Everybody else is just playing for fun. And now we're at a point where if you said teams that can win the national championship, you got to say Georgia. You have to say Oregon. You have to say Ohio State. You have to say LSU. You have to say, I mean, I guess you technically have to say Penn State. I don't think Penn State can win the national championship, but they're undefeated and ranked in the top 5, so you have to say them. And then, listen, the Alabama thing, obviously people are out on them now because they lost to Vandy. Shout out to Doors. Shout out to Diego Pavia. And then they mess around and lose to South Carolina, and then they lose to Tennessee. Or no, they barely beat South Carolina, right? And then they mess around and lose to Tennessee. And so now people are out on them. They want Kalen DeBoer fired. But I think if they're talented enough, they can still win the national championship. The point is that we have to start thinking about college football the way we think about the NFL, where there are a bunch of teams that could beat any of the other teams on any given day. And it's really going to come down to 1, who stays healthy, 2, who plays well on that day in the playoffs, and then 3 would be like coaching and matchups.
Sorry, do you think that's better or worse to have like the college product?
Well, it depends who you ask about that, right? Because if you ask ESPN and if you ask CBS and you ask Fox, they're going to say it's better because they get more inventory with these bigger playoff games. You get more big time matchups between the big teams. Like if it was up to them, they would have a 32-team college football league of the best teams in the Big Ten, the best teams in the SEC, and we'll just play each other all the time. And there'll always be great matchups, and the TV ratings go through the roof. And then if you want to, that's how all this money comes in, right? All this money that is in college football now is all coming directly from the TV companies, right? They run the sport, they own it. And so if you're the ADs and if you're the coaches, your salary keeps going up. And if you're the players who are pushing to get a split of that money, they're not there yet, but they're gonna get there. They all like it too. If you ask the college football fan, they probably don't. There's probably a bunch of them. There are a bunch of them. I know there are a bunch of them that don't like the playoff. That don't like. It's not that they don't like the NAL, but they don't necessarily like that all the talent's getting dispersed now, which is very funny because just up until a couple years ago, the biggest complaint amongst college football fans was, all the best players play on 3 teams, and now the talent's spread out more, and they're like, well, this kind of stuck what we loved about college football. Here's my thing. People who would make the argument against the expanded playoff and the NIL and the conference realignment, which is all of the things that are contributing to college football being more like the NFL. People who are against that, their main argument for it is that it is deriving college football of what made it special, in that it's different from the NFL in that we don't all play for the championship and the games matter more. And to those people, I would say, did you watch Alabama, Tennessee? Did you watch LSU Ole Miss a couple weeks ago? What do you mean the games don't matter?
Yeah, no, for sure.
What are you talking about? There's 100,000 people in the stands who want nothing more than for their team to win, and there's millions at home watching it. It's like, if you were watching college football before and thought the only reason the games mattered is because teams weren't trying to win a national championship, and now they're not going to matter because teams are trying to win a national championship, That didn't make the hatred go away. I've said this a couple times now on the show. College football runs on hatred. That's what makes it special is the hatred. I promise you. We have a 36-team playoff. We have a 300-team playoff. LSU is going to hate Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Ohio State's going to hate Michigan. Michigan's going to stink. Well, they do stink this year. That game between Ohio State and Michigan has no national championship implications at all. Michigan can win that game by 300 points. They will not make the playoff. They will not win a national championship. That game is going to matter so much. So much. Ryan Day, the head coach of Ohio State, is going to get fired if he loses that game because he's lost 3 times in a row and you can't lose 4 times and keep your job. That's just not going to happen. Doesn't matter what else you do. So to say that game doesn't, like, it just doesn't make any sense to me when people say that, like, if what made college football special was that people cared about it so much, then why would there being more games make people care less? Because they didn't care about before caring about the national championship. They still don't care about the national championship. It still matters because you hate that guy next to you. And because of the rivalry and the tradition of it, and that's never going away. The pageantry of it never is going away. Like I've watched these games. Alabama, Georgia, the first game. That's a game the NFL can't give you. The NFL cannot give you a game where there's so much on the line between those two teams, and just in terms of reputation. Like these guys are all recruit the same players. So Alabama beating Georgia, or Georgia beating Alabama is massive because you are going after the exact same guys, and you get to now go to their living room next week and go, "Hey, we beat their ass. You're gonna go there." That matters. It matters to the fan. So to have a team come back from 20, go up 28, then lose it, then get it back, like that's not happening in the NFL. You can't get that there. So there's still the uniqueness of college football, and that's never going away. And so people, it's like, listen, the money's going to keep coming. Very likely, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to split themselves off. And they're going to create some sort of super league, and people are going to tell you that that's the end of college football and it's over now, and it's just an NFL. It's just an NFL development league. And I'm telling you, those people could not be more wrong about what makes this sport go in terms of like what the motivation behind like these why do we do this? Obviously, the money is now the biggest reason why people do this, but like. Why do like the people do? Why do the fans care, right? And it's that's never going away, and college football's not going away. It's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, if you wanted to make an argument that parity is actually not like parity is what people think they want in sports, and it's actually not good. Like you look at the NBA right now and say like like they haven't had right like the NBA for forever was like teams go on. Like these championship runs, right? Like you get like, right, it's the Lakers and it's the Celtics and then it's the Pistons and then the Bulls come in and they do it and then it's the Lakers again and then it's the Heat. You know what I'm saying? Like these dynasties, and then like the last like whatever it's been 4 or 5 years, we haven't had a team go back-to-back titles, right? And so is that more interesting for the NBA? It doesn't seem like it. Their ratings are way down. Is that what people actually want? Is like, it's just a toss-up every year? Or do people want to see like greatness? And that's the one thing. If I want to say what I will miss for college football is like if we I don't necessarily know that it's going to, but if the players are eventually going to get a split of the money, and in order for them to get a split of the money, they're going to have to agree to a salary cap. And once we agree to a salary cap, then that's kind of the end of like the Death Star team, like the 2021 Georgia, where it's like, this is like, or 2020, whatever Georgia team it was where they dominated TCU by 1 million points in the national championship. I think it was 2022 maybe, where it's like, this is like there's NFL players at every spot. And if he gets hurt, don't worry, because there's an NFL player behind him too. Yeah. There's still like Ohio State and Georgia and Oregon, like they're still kind of like that, but it's not. It could just be that we don't have great quarterback playing college football this year, and that's why there's not like one dominant team. Because if you put like a really good quarterback on Ohio State, like that would be a Death Star team. If you put a really good quarterback on Georgia, that's a Death Star team. So it could just be that too. But if we do lose like the death of that like just juggernaut. I'll miss out a little bit because that's something I did love about college football was like you like 2019 LSU, right? That's a great example of it where it's like, and like defensively they weren't even that good, but their offense, like that's the best offense in the history of college football. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like that is, and now that team could still happen theoretically, but I'm just saying that like as an example of like those are the teams that you remember years later of like that specific team is a unique thing about college football that you don't really get in the NFL outside of like, you get the 07 Pats and things like that, where it's like teams had like crazy dominant runs. Yeah. Good there? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best point is like dynasties kind of create novelties too, right? Like it gets something.
Yeah.
you have a team, like a new team winning every single year or something like that.
Look at the NFL.
Talk about that.
Right, the NFL's lucked into it now, where they went like basically right. The Pats dynasty kind of ended, and we went through a little bit of a lull, and now we have another one in our hands right now. And people can say they hate the Chiefs and they hate Mahomes and they hate all that. We'll get into them later, but it's like the NFL is printing money right now.
Yeah.
Like the ratings have never been higher. Their TV deal has never been more money. Like everybody's money's up. Like interest in the league has never been higher than it is right now, and a lot of that has to do with there's like people like this almost as like a like sports are just like fairy tales, really, right? So it's like you need like a dragon to go slay. If the story goes, hey, like we're all kind of like there's a bunch of monsters out there, they're all kind of equal. Like they're, you know, like anyway, it's like, well, who's the biggest, baddest one? It's like, it kind of depends on the day. Yeah, that's not a great story. The story is like, yo, there's this behemoth out there that's killing everything. And then there's a whole bunch of people who are going to go see if they got what it takes to slay them. That's compelling. That's what we have this year. That's why the NFL this year is really, really interesting to watch, because we have, listen, I think nobody's killing Goliath. Like I've told you guys how the story goes. Like the monster is going to win in the end. It's not going to be a happy story, but that's what it's like. The whole thing with the NFL this year is, okay, we got the Chiefs and who can beat them. I said, I'll save the Chiefs thing for when we get into the NFL in a second here. But college football, if they do lose the Death Star team, which hopefully they don't, if we can figure out a way to keep that, then that would be good. But all in all, we get a lot more games, we get a lot more awesome matchups between teams, and the hatred will always continue to be there. So we don't really have to worry about college football going away anytime soon. It will change, but college football has always been changing, right? Like people make the argument like, oh, it's different. It's like, okay, well, do you want to go back to like in the 40s, Army and Navy and Notre Dame were the best teams because everybody was like either going to the military or a Catholic. It's like, you want to go back to that too? Like, should we ban the forward pass? At one point in time, you couldn't throw the ball down the field. Well, did that ruin college football? Like, dumb argument made by old people, generally speaking. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's college. Sunday is what everybody wants to talk about. We'll get off top. The dominant run continues. Now, we posted about it last week. Word has gotten out on what we're doing here. So thank you to everybody who followed on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. If you haven't, make sure you go do it. All platforms, please. Tell your friends about it. Like, subscribe, all that shit. Thank you to everybody who's tuned in now. The word has gotten out about what we're at now. So it was a 6-3 weekend, we'll say. Again, for me there. So percentage actually went up a point, if you can believe it. It went from 66 to 67%. I'm 40-20 on the year. Oh man, it's an interesting spot to be in, because the first thing for the haters came out, which I knew they were coming. I knew they're coming. There's haters in the comment section saying that I'm lying, saying that I don't have the receipts for the bets. That's people saying they got better numbers than me.
I gotta say too, it's not that he doesn't have the receipts for the bets, because he's illiterate with how Instagram works. It's because you post the story, it disappears, and then we can draw back from that.
I don't have the notes apps. I got the notes apps.
The notes apps again, like we could adjust. I get it, but I get what they're saying. It's just it's you didn't understand.
Well, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of, and it's fine. They don't know me. That's fine. But like nobody has ever questioned my integrity as a gambler. Never happened. If I say I bet it, I bet it. I've never given out a pick that I haven't bet. I've never done that. I never will do that. I've got money, and listen, the money doesn't even matter to me anymore at this point. Like now that we're on this run, it's kind of similar to golf. I thought about, where it's like, everybody has a certain way they play the game, and then it's like, but if you were to start around like 3 under through 6, you're like, all right, well now this all matters now. Yeah. Like every single, I'm very, very careful about what I'm doing here. So like I said, the haters and the losers came out. That's fine. We love the haters. We love the losers. As long as you're watching, you're a fan. It doesn't matter to me. Please get in the comment section and tell me that I'm a liar. I'll keep posting these winners. It's fine. A lot of support too. So thank you to everybody that I know people are following the picks. I'm going to keep winning as much as I possibly can for you guys. And that brings me to that where people now have, so now that I've done this now, so I'm 67% through 7 weeks of NFL. So that's almost 2 months at a really, really, really high clip. How does that impact what I'm doing week to week? Am I thinking about it? Is it influencing the picks I'm making? Here's what I'll tell you. The process is going to stay the same. You know why the process is going to stay the same? Process is going to stay the same because a little something the great coach Nick Saban once said. Now, if you go, you guys can look this up. We'll cut this in for you here. Nick Saban at a press conference. It was one of the years where, Alabama was killing teams. They were up, they're 7-0, 8-0, ton of success. And he talks about the importance of nothing. and what that means. So here, we'll play the clip for you guys here.
Keep going. Give me a sec. Might have it ready.
Okay. Well, so basically the clip is like this, right? So his whole point in it is, what do you get if you wake up in the morning and you feel entitled? Nothing. What do you get if you walk around feeling like the world owes you something? You get nothing. What does talent get you if you don't have the discipline and the focus to execute in the right moments? You get nothing. And so because of that, because of what Nick Saban said, I'm not changing anything. I'm not entitled. I know the board doesn't care about what my record is. You're only as good as your next bet. And so we are thinking about nothing. We are thinking about the value of nothing.
Okay, y'all ready for a lecture? Talk about the importance of nothing. You get up every day, you're entitled to nothing. Nobody owes you nothing. You could have talent, but if you don't have discipline and you don't execute, you don't focus, what do you get? Nothing. If you're complacent and not paying attention to detail, what does that get you? Nothing. So nothing is acceptable but your best. So we need to be, everything is determined by what you do and you trying to be your best.
So that's Saban talking about nothing. And like I said, that's the approach that I'm going to have throughout this run, is that we're not entitled. We don't deserve winners. The board doesn't care about what your record is. It only cares about the next bet. And so I'm going to continue as it is. I'm going to continue reading the board. I still feel like every single bet I place, I feel great about right now, which, I mean, obviously you're going to, when you win this much, you expect to see the ball go in. Yeah, no, that's really what it is. So again, like, I know a bunch of people are going to watch this now because they want the winners. I'm going to keep trying to give you guys the winners. But these are honest picks, man. These are nothing is faked. Nothing is, we don't edit anything before or after the games.
How do you say that too? I mean, if people were following from the very beginning, they would have been able to get in, make some money.
Fact. That's fine. And listen,
again, just jump in, just join them.
Yeah, listen. Again, and the card, like, we're gonna keep posting the cards on the TikToks and the Instagrams and all this stuff, so you guys can follow along. But go back and check the bets from this weekend. It was a comfortable 6-3. Felt like I read every game right. Raiders, Rams, got that one. Where I was wrong there, just the Raiders weren't able to run the ball the way I thought they were going to. Missed on Packers Texans. That game ends up pretty close to the total. I thought we deserved better there as well. I'd probably place the same bet again if I had to. And then last night, I mean, geez, Cardinals Chargers. Like, I've never seen a team like Chargers kicked 5 field goals, had 350 yards of offense through the air, and scored 15 points. Like, it's just the turnover, they get the pick, and then they fumble it, and then they fumble out the back of the end zone. From like the 3, like, just really some really bad breaks. But that's fine. That's gambling. That's going to happen. And that's why nobody goes 100%. Nobody goes 80%. Let's be honest with you, people. Nobody goes 67%, man. Like, let's just be honest. Again, if people feel like, I don't want this to come off as like, oh, I'm the best gambler in the world, I'm the best at this. But it's like, the numbers just are what they are.
At the current moment in this season.
Like, there's no question about it. And this is the clip that started to spread a little bit because it's a wild claim to hear. But when you start to dig into it, you can't really argue with me. I am one of the hottest NFL bettors alive today. It's just true. So, listen, I love that you guys are all here. I know there's going to be haters in the comments again. That's fine. We'll see you there. Listen, we're not above mixing it up in the comment section. Let that be known, all right? No. People think, that was Stephon. Did you see Stephon Diggs' quote after the game this week? No. Where he was getting into it with Jair Alexander and them on the Packers. Okay. And then basically, a quote afterwards, you can look it up, but like, it basically comes down to they were acting tough, and I'm always gonna, like, basically the quote is, he's like, I'm never the bigger person. He's like, I'm always, and that's true. We will never be the bigger people. All right. Oh, pettiness is fun. Yeah, we respect it. We've said we respect the petty. We respect the scumbags. We respect the con artists and like the petty people with a grudge. Like, that's, you don't think I've never placed grudge bets before? I'll place grudge bets all the time. All right. So listen, we're not above it. So if you want to mix up in the comments, please do. We'll meet you there. All right, let's get on to football. Enough about the record. We got to keep, like I said, we're not nothing. All right, we're owed nothing. We're gonna keep it about the football.
We're just getting this. We're airing it so we can
Exactly. But Coach Saban would want us to move on. He would say this is rat poison. You can't keep talking about how good you are. Nobody cares. What matters is what you do this week. So we're moving on. Thank you, Coach Saban. All right. Notable games. I want to start with the Chiefs. I sat here last week and I told you people. I said the first thing I said when we started talking about the slate of games was I have no idea how Patrick Mahomes is a dog to anybody right now, especially the Niners.
People still aren't respecting him.
I don't understand.
He's having a great season. So I was like, how do you not look at that as they're not trying and they're 6-0.
Right. They're still trying to figure it out on offense. Which, by the way, quick aside, there was rumors today that Cooper Kupp is being shopped by the Rams as a possible trade to different teams. I'm telling you people right now. If you people who hate the Chiefs, you people who are sick of this, and listen, I don't necessarily love the Chiefs. I just like being right. If they get Cooper Kupp, we're canceling the next 4 Christmases. Like, it's over. That type of receiver, that what his individual skill set is, it's basically they get like another Kelsey. In just that, like, they don't have to, like, he's gonna have so much freedom to just run his own routes and find the soft spot in zones and be creative and improvise off of what Mahomes is doing. Mahomes will be so good at getting him the ball. You guys are worried about DeAndre Hopkins. You need to be worried about the white boy in LA. I'm telling you that right now, because if that happens, over. A lot of people should be interested in Cooper Kupp. He's definitely, if he is actually available.
When that team gets healthy, then it's like they got Hollywood Brown, they got Travis Kelce,
yeah,
they got Cooper Kupp, and then they got who's the other fast guy there right now? Fucking
Xavier Worthy, the rookie.
Like they're so fast on the
they're so fast, but they're not even. But that's the thing. That's why they're so good, and that's why the Niners thing never made sense to me. But as people finally come around on the Niners. Obviously, Ayuk gets hurt. Debo's in the hospital with pneumonia. McCaffrey's not playing this week. They think maybe after the bye. People are coming around what I was telling you for tonight. It's over for the Niners. They like what they were is dead. And that's okay. Like, it's hard to keep these teams. That's what the Mahomes thing is, the Chiefs thing is so impressive. It's hard to keep these teams going for very long. And now they're in a position, we saw it on Sunday, where they don't got the goods at the skill positions anymore. The line play has gone down a little bit. The defense isn't quite as good. And now they're asking Brock Purdy to be the man. And like, that's just not what that's not what he is. He was the last overall pick. People guessed, and people would talk about he's a franchise quarterback. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. He's a franchise quarterback in so much that, like, I think he's one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league. He is not a guy who you can hand the ball to and say, hey, man, go win it for us.
He's got that old school personality people are going to like too, right? Where he's Christian guy, white guy.
Sure.
Like, I think that's why people attach him to. He does
sure.
A little bit of success. They're like, oh, man, he's a god guy. Too.
Yeah. You know you just described? Oh, Kirk.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah,
it's right, which is. Yeah. I thought I was going to sneeze there. Which is fine. Right, there's a million of these guys, of these play action merchants in the NFL. That's what you kind of have in the NFL. You have your elite guys that you can go win the game. That can go win the game for you. So that's Mahomes, that's Allen, that's Lamar. You can probably put Stroud in that category now. People thought Herbert, maybe not Herbert now. People want to put Jordan Love in that category now. Burrow, like those guys. And then after that, the next step down is your like play action merchants, right? The guys who, if everything is right around them, if you have a good offensive line, you have good skill players, and you call the right type of plays for him, and you can run the ball, then he can be successful in the NFL. And that's your Kirk Cousinses of your Brock Purdy. Sam Darnold's trying to do that now. People would say that's Baker Mayfield. I would say his numbers are not. He's leading the league in touchdowns. Just take a look at it. Yeah. Now he's obviously, we'll get into what happened. He doesn't have a healthy receiver anymore. That was tough to see last night, but. Those type of guys, those are your like next tier of quarterbacks. And then after that, it's like just like, your average level, replacement level guy who it's like, we don't want him to start, but like, again, we don't have anybody better. So that's like your
Andy Dalton, Carolina.
Sure. Yeah. The Daltons of the world. And then like the backups, right? So it's like if you want to win a Super Bowl, you have to have probably one of the top tier guys. And if you're not going to have one of the top tier guys, if you're going to try to like Joe Flacco it in the, when did they win 2012, 2011, whatever year the Ravens one was, where it's like, we're just going to have everything else go right. We're going to have a great defense, great receivers, and great offense. We're going to have everything else go right. And we're going to have to hope he plays well in the playoffs.
He also had one of the best runs.
Sure. Right. So that's an instance of it working, right? Now, there's a million other instances where it's like, oh, why did you win? Oh, we had Tom Brady. Oh, we had Pat Mahomes. Oh, we had Peyton Manning. It's like, yeah, that's obviously the better way, the easier way to win. But if you don't have a quarterback in one of those two categories, you can't win. And if you're going to win with a guy in the second category, everything has to be right. everything is not right with the Niners. They're finished for what, especially with all the injuries, right? They're finished as contenders. It's not going to happen. They can't do it with the roster that they have. Now, here's what I will say, and there's just a little tidbit for people. It's like, how do you go 67%? It's like, you got to be one step ahead. Fading the Niners so far has been a good strategy because people weren't hip to it being over, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it is now public opinion, right? It's what everybody's talking about now, that the Niners are finished because of the injuries, because Brock Purdy's looked bad, right? So now it's gone the other way where people are like, oh, they've caught on, the Niners are finished. But people aren't counting into the fact, which they won't coming forward, and we're going to have some spots to make money on this. They're not thinking about Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan is still probably him or Andy Reid, best offensive mind in football. And so it will go, this is how it goes. The tide of public opinion will go so far now in the other direction of like how bad the Niners are that there's going to be great spots to like take the Niners and like a whole bunch of points. And Kyle's just going to scheme it up. Yeah. He's just going to scheme dudes open, right? We see it with the running back, right? Where it's like, oh, if Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason's like running for 1 million yards.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
They're going to scheme it up in Sanford. The one thing one of the things I trust most about in football right now is that Kyle Shanahan's teams will have a good offensive game plan every single week. So, like I said, that's how you want to really start getting good at this. Not that I don't want to start giving out advice, but you got to start thinking that way of like, where is public opinion right now? Because that's what ultimately sets lines, is what Vegas is able to get bets on, right? So what the public thinks. And then you just got to find out where they're wrong. And so far through this year, people have been wrong about the Chiefs because they don't think they're the juggernaut that they are. They think there's something for. First of all, I want the Chiefs to lose a couple of games here. Like I would really, really like the Chiefs. So their price to win the Super Bowl go up a little bit, and I can actually feel good about betting it. If they keep going at this pace, they're gonna be even money by Christmas to win the goddamn Super Bowl. So I'd love it if they lost a couple of games. They haven't. But people were wrong on the Chiefs. People were wrong on the Niners. And again, it's not their fault. It's like it's just people who don't really know the game that well, who don't pay attention that much. It's like, well, they were in the Super Bowl. They were really good. What do you mean? They're at home. Of course, I'm going to lay less than 3. They lose by 2 scores. So that's number one. That's the Chiefs are still the juggernaut, same as I've been saying all year long. The Niners are dead as a contender, as I've been saying all year long. It manifests itself on Sunday with an easy cash. I said that from the jump. First lock of the week to hit too. 2-0 in lock of the weeks this week. We didn't talk about that. Real quiet lock of the week chatter. It was 0-5. I was getting a lot.
There was a point where I was hoping you'd go.
Listen, a lot of people. I understand. I get it. I get it. Cash both easy though. Both 2-0 lock of the weeks. Yeah. Back on track. Love that one. All right. Now, speaking of the Niners, you know who the new Niners are? It's the Lions. The Lions are the new Niners. They're the new Niners in a couple of ways. Number one, they're the new Niners because they're now the favorite to come out of the NFC. They are the top dog in the NFC right now. That's no question about that at this point. They are also built in an extremely similar way to the Niners, in so much they run a similar scheme, but just in so much of like they're like we have great line play. Obviously, the Aiden Hudson thing is going to hurt. That's why there's rumors that they're trading for Max Crosby, or even I've heard Myles Garrett, which would be intriguing. The price tag is going to be high. We're talking like multiple for.
This is their year though,
right? Right. And you could even argue too. It's like this is the year, and then next year we get to come back with Myles Garrett and Aiden Hudson. Yeah. Scary stuff. Scary time. Right now. Right, but, and this goes right back to the point I was making. So they're on that, right? Their team fits so well together. They all know exactly what they're doing. They know what their role is. They're bought into the scheme. They have continuity. They've been together for a while. They all love their coach. They're bought in on what he's doing. He has a certain style, obviously being super aggressive, that they know. If you know that's how we're going to play, then you can get on board with that. Like, okay, this is just what it's going to be. We're just going to go for the fucking punt, man. Holy shit. The fake punt down 7 on their own 35 on 4th and 7 in the first quarter. Even that was when I was like, oh man, like, Dan, I don't know about that one, brother. We might have been on tilt there a little bit. Like, I understand it's like,
oh, you know that that black tape was later, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that was,
and I love it.
Yeah, well, I didn't love it with fucking Lions 1.5. They'd already down 7, but that was a testament of like the Lions being like legitimate. Again, they're not legitimate in some, like they don't, the problem is that they don't have the top tier of the quarterback. They've got the second tier. They've got the play action guy. They've got Jared Goff. And when you get good Goff, like we got against the Vikings, you get crazy offensive success, right? And that's awesome. That's like the best version of that. There's been a bunch of Kirk Cousins years where he's done shit like that. Ryan Tannehill, like those that can happen. That's great. If you get the bad Goff game, though, you don't have anyone to save you. Whereas, like, if you have an elite quarterback, yes, obviously if he has the bad game, you still lose. But there is the chance that he can just fix it all for you. There's no chance Jared Goff's not fixing anything for you. He can take advantage of what you set up for him, no question about it. He's like, if you wanted to rank the play action merchants, he's probably the best one right now.
Yep.
But that's what he is. He's not creating anything on his own. So that's their flaw. That's why ultimately I would pick the Chiefs over them.
Well, yeah, especially if it's going to come down to line play like that too, because like, you know what I mean, like it's just going to be two lines colliding. Then you're not going to get much of a run game, and then how are you going to get Jared Goff?
Right, and that's why the Chiefs are the Chiefs, is because it's like it's Mahomes and it's you know, it's Kelsey and it's all that. That's not how they're winning these. They're winning these games off their defense. Their defense is exceptional. They hit on 1 million draft picks on that side of the ball. And they have a great defensive coordinator, and like that's how they beat the Niners. They beat them with their defense. But the Lions are again the top team in the NFC for me right now. They've taken over the spot from the Niners. We'll see how long they can keep this run together. It's definitely going to be for like the rest of this year. Like I don't see they can lose in the playoffs for sure. And we'll talk about it. I'm going to rank some NFC contenders later. There's some teams that could get them, you know, but they're not going to be dogs to anybody. They're probably going to get home field advantage, and that's going to be a tough place to go play in the playoffs in that dome. So. I like the Lions a lot. But again, I don't think they can't beat if they can't beat the Chiefs because they're the new Niners. Where it's like, could they on the right day beat the Chiefs? Yeah, absolutely. If everything goes right, but you have to have everything go right. Yeah. The Chiefs don't even need everything to go right. They need a couple things to go right, and they're going to beat you. So that's kind of where that shakes out. Last thing I want to talk about. Well, not the last thing I want to talk about, but I feel like the next thing we got to talk about, Deshaun Watson. Man, that is like people talk about. Look, there's that meme 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever, about the NFL being scripted. Arian Foster like perpetuated that or whatever. And I was like, I got annoying very quickly. But if you like, this is an interesting turn in the whole story. So for those of you who didn't see, I don't know how you wouldn't have if you're watching this, but Deshaun Watson very clearly at the time and confirmed later blew his Achilles. In the second quarter, I think, first quarter maybe, of the game on Sunday. This is how bad Deshaun Watson's been this year. I had the Bengals minus 5.5. When he got hurt, they brought in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I was like, this might not be good. Yeah, no exactly. Well, that was also the bullshit thing too. People have already called them out on this. So we don't have to do it, but I just want to make note of it. They benched Jameis, made him the third string quarterback, just so people would stop asking for him to start. You can't do that to people. You can't deprive us of Jameis. And listen, now the football gods are right every time. They took care of it. Dorian Thompson-Robinson got hurt too, and they eventually had to put Jameis in. So it's like, we got our Jameis, goddammit. Which is great. I love more Jameis the better. Especially if you're gonna be bad. If you're bad, we'll talk about the Titans a little bit later too. Like, I'd love it if the Titans trade for Jameis.
Yeah, if there was anywhere, Titans are a good option, but like if there's anywhere, it's the Browns and Jameis.
Yes,
that's a perfect marriage.
Anyway, now So Deshaun Watson blows Achilles is obviously done for the year. So there's two sides kind of ways to talk about this. I don't want to talk too much about like the reaction to the injury because it's, I don't know, man. It's like nobody's like, I get where everybody's coming from on this, and it doesn't really matter who's right. It's gonna, everybody's gonna feel how they feel about it. So he blows Achilles, right? He's laying on the field. The Browns fans start booing him when he's laying on the ground. And then as he's getting carted off, they start chanting, "You deserve it."
Jeez.
It's his own fans, right? And then so after the game, Jameis, I don't know if you've seen that clip. He does like a crazy interview where he does his Jameis thing. So the funniest thing I heard about Jameis, I forget who said it, but they said that Jameis calls plays like he's telling a secret, which is awesome. Yeah. And so he just has the like performance to what that interview he's doing, but talking about how he thought it was bullshit the way Deshaun had been treated by the fans, and you can't cheer when a guy gets hurt and all that. And Myles Garrett, very funny too, in the press conference says that Deshaun, this is so funny. Deshaun Watson has been a stand-up individual throughout college and most of the pros. It's like, what? What?
It was that one little thing. Otherwise, great guy.
Like, if you look at it, like 90% of the time, he wasn't doing anything. Crazy. So crazy. It's what, listen, man, football players probably shouldn't talk. Like, that's really where it comes down to. Is like a lot of these guys, like they made a lot of money and they're in front of the cameras for reasons other than like the thoughts that come out of their fucking brains. Right? Some of them are great at it. Most of them are not. So there's that, and then the back and forth of, wow, what do you mean? Why you're more upset about the fans booing than you were about what he did? What do you mean? You know what I'm saying? Like there's that reaction to it. And here's the only point I'll make on this. If you think that it's okay to boo Deshaun or cheer for him or whatever, just be happy that he got hurt because of all the off-field stuff, all the sexual assault stuff that it seems like he did. I wasn't there. I don't know, but it seems like he did it. And then like the way he sort of handled himself afterwards, like basically showing no remorse. Fine. That is not why those fans were booing. They were booing him because he sucked this year. That's what they're mad about. If he was balling out, if he had 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions right now, and the Browns were leading that division, and he blew his Achilles, I promise you those fans are not booing. They are devastated. Yeah. They would, and that's just I just know that because I know football fans, especially Browns fans, are a very passionate fan base, and you see this all of the time in college football. Listen, I hand up. Joe Mixon, first day at Oklahoma, punched a chick dead in the face on camera in a bar. I cheered every single time that dude scored a touchdown for Oklahoma. I love Joe Mixon. And so I'm not judging anybody for this. I'm one of these people where it's like, it's the shout out to Big J Okerson, one of my favorite comedians. He had a joke about when Michael Vick was on the Eagles. Like at first he was like, "Oh, that's crazy. We can't do that." And then like he scored like 3 touchdowns in the first game, and he was like, "I was ready to throw him a puppy in the end zone." Like, tear to pieces, Mike. And listen. I've been on record. Todd Downing got arrested for driving drunk after a game when he was the offensive coordinator of the Titans a couple years ago. And I am on record saying that my only issue with that is that the offense sucked at the time. Yeah. If we were clicking on offense, I'd be like, why are we pulling this guy over? Like, let him do what he wants to do. Yeah. We're rolling. So I'm not judging anybody, but I just want to make that point clear of like the people who are like, no, it's okay to boo because that's not what they're booing. So let's just all get on the same page with that. They don't care. No, I promise you, if they were winning and they were good, they would not be booing that dude for blowing. Now, that's the reaction side of it. We're done with that. The football side of it. I think, given the money that's guaranteed, how out of market or above market that deal was at the time, what he's produced on the field, and now he's going to be coming off an Achilles injury on a guy who relies pretty heavily on his athleticism. That contract might be the worst sports contract of all time. I'm trying to think.
Just going to ask you.
I think it's the worst one ever. I think it's the worst one ever because there's ones that like the John Wall contract for the Wizards. They gave him like $180 million guaranteed. He basically never played for him. That one's bad. It's all NBA contracts. Like the Ben Simmons contract is bad. Yeah. Like there's some horrendous ones out there, but he had $230 million guaranteed on day one. And has given them nothing. And it's like, now people are saying that he might not ever play in the NFL again. I don't necessarily know that. If you told me he didn't play for the Browns again, I could believe that. I know they can't cut him this year because it would be like $170 million dead money on the cap next year. And like you literally couldn't fill out a roster. Like you would be minimum guys everywhere and lose everything. Like you couldn't do it. I don't think the league would let you. Like the other owners would step in and be like, hey man, like you're hurting everybody's pockets here. You can't do that. Mm-hmm. If they cut him after next year, because like that's the thing, like this Achilles thing is like it's going to take a year at least, right? So we're talking about him maybe coming back middle of next year. Who knows what their record is at that time? Is it worth it to bring him back? Do they want him back? Is it just going to be a distraction? So if you told me he got cut after next year, I could see it. I would have to see what that dead money figure looks like. Obviously, it'd be less than 170 mil, but it would be a record probably for dead money. I mean, they would have to. I'm assuming they'd be eating somewhere in the 100 mil range probably, which is like, I mean, listen, there's been a bunch of times now where teams have eaten a whole bunch of dead money because the NFL cap's kind of fake. You can restructure contracts, get around it and stuff. But that would be unprecedented. But like the other option is like he comes back after he just got booed by all the fans when he blew his Achilles. All these guys, and that's the thing with the NFL, they're all terrified of that injury. That is the one, like they don't really care about, like ACLs are bad. Like Ayuk tore his ACL, he's going to come back and be the exact same guy, and he's probably going to come back in like 8 months, 6 months, right? Like that's not what it used to be, that injury. The Achilles is bad, man. Like these guys live in fear of that. So for like you to basically have your worst fears realized, although I don't know. Do you think he'd trade the Achilles for like all the allegations to go away? I wonder if he'd be like, all right, like I'll blow the other one too. but we got to make it so that like I never get these texts from my lawyer again.
Either way, his football career is difficult.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's like
for different
I do
reasons,
wonder
but-
if he was getting carted off, and he's like, well, it could have been worse. I could have got another sexual assault.
Off and was like, who gives a fuck?
I wonder if can I get a massage? Might have. Who knows? Listen, man. I'll say this about the guy. I obviously don't know him, but like the way he has like stuck to his guns, like kind of dead to rights, but still just being like, whatever. It is what it is. Like he might be like a psycho. It's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
He's
Like
an
he might be
NFL he's a professional athlete. I think he's a
but I mean, like he might be like he might not like process emotion like the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? Like he might be like crazy. So all right, so that's the Deshaun thing. It's very funny. Not funny. It's not. It's crazy. If you told me like that's the way it was gonna go when he signed the contract, like, I'd be like, that's the most Browns thing of all time. It's like that has got to be the most tortured fan base in professional football. Because like literally, like you could not have asked for this. This could not have gone any worse. Unless he was going to like get sexually accused of sexual assault by like the owner's daughter or something. Like that's the only way it could get any worse. Yeah. So that was crazy to see. I don't know. If you're the Browns, I literally don't know what you do. I honestly, we talk about teams who are fucked. They are multi-year fucked. They're one of the few teams who it's like, oh, your next couple of years, like there's nothing you can do. And that's why Myles Garrett's getting rumored to be traded. Cause it's like, yeah, you might as well, bro. Like it doesn't matter. Like you can't afford to bring anybody else in. You're going to they have to take a quarterback this year in the draft just so they can have an affordable quarterback on the roster that might be able to play a little bit. Cause it's not DTR and obviously they don't want it, especially after Jameis's press conference. I think he might be done in that town pretty quick. Come to Tennessee, Jameis. I would love him in Tennessee. We'll talk about Titans in a minute. And then the last thing, well, I guess not the last thing, but the next thing is the Jets. Devontae didn't fix them. We kind of talked about that last week about how he wasn't, you know, it's a nice guy to have, but it's like, it's building on something you already had, which is receiving talent. It doesn't help protect Aaron Rodgers. We saw that against the Steelers on Sunday night there. I mean, the Jets, I don't think they're two scores worse than the Steelers are. I think they got rust a little bit there. They just had a lot of secondary guys out. Some guys went out during the game, and then Russ is throwing those like moon balls, which were basically like 50-50 at best, and Pickens was just able to come up with a bunch. So it's like a kind of a variance thing there. I don't necessarily buy too much into that specific result, but what I do buy into is they're 2-5 and they can't block anybody. And so like I don't know what you do with that from a football perspective of like, yeah, like I understand like Aaron Rodgers is probably the smartest player left in football, just in terms of like game situations in football. Like I'm just talking about that shit. And that's great. And he was already in rhythm with Devontae, and that's great. And Garrett Wilson's great. And Breece Hall's awesome. And Braylon Allen, the other running back I've loved since he was in high school. He's fantastic. But like they lost, Elijah Vera Tucker went down in that game when they're starting off his lineman. They're already thin there. Like Tyron Smith, I love Tyron Smith. He's a Hall of Famer. It's over for him. He can't do it anymore. And so I just don't know I just don't know how they're just not going to fix it. They're just not. They're probably not a playoff team at this point. Which is, listen, man, there is a lot of carnage around the NFL right now of just like teams who had a plan and they're like, yep, this is what we're doing. We're all in. And then it just collapsing. The Browns are like that. The Jets are like that. The Niners, obviously, like that's a sinking ship right now, right? The band is still playing on the Titanic, but like the ship's going down, you know? So a lot of carnage around the NFL right now, but it's that time of year, and we're going to get to the time of year where it's going to be trade season, and then it's going to be fired season. Guys are going to start losing jobs. I think Dougie P could be on. We're going to predict it every week, but like I think they get their ass beat this week. Playing the Packers. I'm waiting on that's at 4.5 right now, but it's juiced to the Jags, so I'm thinking it might drop to 4 or 3.5, at which point that will be hammer time. The Jags coming back from 2 weeks in London, now got to get readjusted back to the time zone. They've been gone for a long time, just coming off a big win, could be a letdown spot, probably feeling themselves a little more than they should, beating a Pats team that stinks. So I think they're going to smoke this week. That could be at home. That could be the end for Doug P. They're on the bye next week too, so that's generally a good time to fire the coach. And then there's a bunch of other coaches that we've talked about before that might get fired. So, all right. Ranking the NFC contenders. We're going to do this quick because we're running long here, but real quick, start with the Lions. They're the number one team in the NFC for me right now. I don't really see a way that anybody can pass them unless they suffer more injuries. The Aiden Hutchinson thing obviously hurts, so they're not as high up as I don't have them as high up as I normally would, but I still think they're better than everybody in the NFC. Number 2 right behind them, I have the Packers. The Packers. I think they did a good job surviving the Jordan Love injury. He looks like he's back to what he was. Their defense is very good. That was the one thing I took away from their game this week against the Texans. Obviously cost me the over. So that defense is legit. Good in the secondary. Good up front. That's a winning recipe, because if Jordan Love is one of those elite tier guys, if he becomes that, I'm not saying he's going to this year, but he has a chance to, and you compare that with a really good defense, it's like, okay, now we might have something here. And they're well coached. Matt LaFleur is a very good coach. I think he's on that, he's up in that group with Shanahan and Reed and McVay. And maybe not quite as much as those guys, but he's of that tree. He's friends with those guys. You can put him right up there. They're going to have a good game plan most weeks. And then third, I have them there for now. Obviously, I made this list before last night's game, so we have to reevaluate given the injuries, but I got the Bucs. Now, they got stomped last night by the Ravens, but the Ravens are very good. The Ravens are the second best team in the NFL, and they'll stomp a team in the regular season for sure. The one thing the Ravens have done under Harbaugh, especially with Lamar Jackson, is they will beat teams they are better than. We know they're going to do that. The problem is they can't really beat teams that are better than them. That's always kind of been the issue, and that's why they're still number 2 behind the Chiefs. But I believe in the Bucs. I believe in Baker. Their defense is suspect for sure, and now the injury thing. So Mike Evans goes down last night. I'm hearing like 3 to 4 weeks for him with the hamstring, and then Godwin snaps his ankle in half, basically. I don't know if you saw the injury there, but Godwin is laying on his stomach, facing the ground. His foot is facing the sky. Tough scene. So he's hurt again. Tough time for him to get hurt. His contract's coming up at the end of this year. He hasn't gotten paid yet. So, sucks to see that. Now puts the Bucs firmly in the quarterback or in the receiver market for Hopkins or for Kupp or for maybe Calvin Ridley or whatever other receiver might be available right now. They should definitely do what they can to try and get him. And then, because then if you can get another receiver in there and get Mike Evans back, that division is super, super winnable. You're going to get a home playoff game. You might get a first-round bye, depending because the NFC North is probably going to cannibalize each other a little bit, right? The Vikings and the Packers and the Lions all have to play each other twice. So their records so you have a shot at getting that 2 seed, getting that bye. Huge. So the Bucs, I think, are there pending some injuries stuff. And then after that, I mean, like in the group of like maybe they could jump up. I see the Seahawks, who they just don't impress me much. Like there's just nothing. Like there's nothing they do great. Gino's been very, very efficient. Shout out to him. Obviously revived his career in a legitimate way, and they're well coached. I love Mike McDonald. So their defense is always going to play well. Kenneth Walker's good. DK got hurt. Maybe he's always kind of hurt. So like they would be the kind of that next team for me, I guess. But I don't know. It might be like I might be reading it wrong, but I just don't. There's just something missing.
It's just their division's weak, so like they have a good chance.
Yeah, and it's just like it's just like every other team. It's like I know what they do great. It's like the Lions. Obviously, we know what it is that they're great at doing. And then the Packers. It's like, well, they might have the elite quarterback. And then it's the Bucs. It's like, well, they're going to be similar. They were kind of similar to the Lions in so much of like they can run the ball and they had all the skill talent at receiver, and then Baker making all the reads, delivering things on time, kind of executing in that way. And then you get to the Seahawks, and it's like, yeah, okay, you've kind of got the Lions and the Bucs thing going on, where you've got the skill guys, but I don't like your skill guys as much as theirs. And I don't know, again, it could be a bias thing with Gino, where it's like I just saw him play so much bad football for so long that it's still like hard. It's like the Sam Darnold thing I've got going on with the Vikings. We'll talk about them in a second, but it's like I'm going to need to see you play well for a lot longer than this before I really start to believe it. And then you put the Vikings in there too. I mean, they lose to the Lions. That was a tough loss for the Vikings. That kind of really exposed the Vikings as frauds, in my opinion, because they had the bye week before that game, so they came out. They had 2 weeks to prep for that game. Massive game for them for the division lead. This is the game where we're going to legitimize ourselves against the team everybody thinks is the best in the NFC. The Lions coming off the beatdown of the Cowboys on the road, classic letdown spot. And early it went that way, right? They jumped out to a 10-0 lead. Now, fucking Dan Campbell hands them 3 of those with the fake punt, but they jumped them early, right? And they've got a really interesting thing going for them on defense, where they play defense in a super different way than everybody else in the league does. They play it super aggressive defense. Brian Flores is their coach. He was the head coach in Miami for a bunch of years there. He's a New England guy, a Belichick guy. They play a ton of man coverage. They blitz the hell out of you, and that is an aggressive, obviously, way of playing defense. And so when you do that, your variance is very high, where it's like when it works, it's awesome. When it doesn't work, it's a disaster. But the advantage they have is that nobody else plays that way. And so when you're game planning, when you're going through your practice week in the NFL, everybody kind of does basically the same thing, just different variations of it. How much do they do this? How much do they do that? Okay, let's get ready for it. When you have to prepare for a completely different thing than you're used to seeing, a completely different defense, it's harder. It takes more time. You're not quite as sure about it, and so they have an advantage that way. You see this in college football a lot too, where it's like teams like Army and Navy, who are ranked now, by the way, they will get teams because they run the triple option and nobody else does. And it's like, that's just hard to prep for. You don't, like, even like scout team in practice, you don't have, your guys aren't used to running it. So like, you're not getting good looks, and like, it can be an advantage. But for them to lose that game at home with the rest advantage, where it meant like they were, that should have been a win for them. But good pick by me. I called out, it was fraudulent. The Sam Darnold thing is not for real. He's going to turn back into a pumpkin. He can maybe become the play action merchant type guy, but he's, in my mind, the lower end of that, which means that the bad games are going to be worse and they're going to be more often. And we got one of those. And ultimately the Lions were able to go in there and win the shootout. They figured out that defense. Goff carved them, right? So like they were able to game plan for it, figure it out. And that's what I'm saying. It's high variance. Like once it became clear that the Lions had figured out the Vikings defense, then that was pretty much the end of the game there. So that's kind of how I see the NFC shaking out. Will be interesting to watch it the rest of the way. Now, last thing. So a lot of new listeners today. Thank you again for being here. So for those of you who don't know, I obviously bet on all the games, care about my bets. I have favorite teams. I'm an Oklahoma Sooners fan, and I'm a Tennessee Titans fan. Now, I know what you're thinking. How did this kid from Canada go to Oklahoma Sooners and a Tennessee Titans fan? Doesn't matter. It's a different story for a different day. We'll get into that one day. What matters right now is I am at, I think, the lowest point in my football fandom that I've ever been at.
Not a lot of good going on for you.
You know that meme? You know that meme out there where it's the guy posting a selfie to Facebook and he's just like mean mugging it, and then there's the comment under it.
Nothing smart about my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me right now, man. And so obviously if you're listening to this, you know, we'll just recap it. The Titans are an embarrassment. They're 1-5. Yeah, 1-5. They embarrass me every week. The Will Levis thing's not going to work. Spent $1 million in free agency. It's not going to work. New coach this year. He might get fired. It's all bad. It's all horrible. I miss Vrabel so much. Like, it's all, I didn't know what I had at the time. Man, I miss those days. Derrick Henry and AJ Brown, all that. That's all gone. It's all gone now. And then Oklahoma. Because I'm used to the Titans embarrassing me. They've embarrassed me a lot in my life. I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. I'm used to it. Oklahoma's never treated me like this. This is so bad what we got going on right now. So Oklahoma is now 4-3. We got blown out by Texas. We just lost at home to South Carolina. We turned the ball over on 3 straight plays. 3 straight plays we turned the ball over, and now we're down like 30-0 to South Carolina. Fired the offensive coordinator the next day. Head coach doesn't sound like he's got any answers. We're now back to the original quarterback that we benched before going to the second guy. Now we're mad at him. We're going back to the first guy. Every receiver on the roster is hurt. The offensive line sucks. It's bad. And so this is the point I want to make. People often ask me, how do you know what counts as a fan? Like, how do you know you're a real fan of a team? Here's how you know. If you're a fan, then that means that the performance of your team impacts your emotional well-being on a day-to-day basis. Here's what I mean by that. We objectively have had a very, very, very successful week. The bets are hitting at an all-time rate. The pod's got new followers, new listeners. The TikTok's blowing up. Everybody's showing lots of love. Love it, love it, love it. A great week for us. Every 20 minutes, I will get a thought in the back of my head. It'd be, Oklahoma fucking sucks, dude. It sucks so bad every day. It's like, and listen, it goes the other way too. Like I've said this before, like that stretch when the Titans were running from like 2018 to like through like 2021 was not a great period of my life. Super broke, didn't have a lot of money, didn't have a lot of direction in my life. But every day I woke up being like, the Titans are rolling. I don't have that anymore, man. I got good things going on in my life, and these teams are ruining my life. They're truly ruining. They impact, and so that's what it is, man. That's what being a fan is it's like win or lose, this team will control my mood. And people say that's not healthy. Yeah, of course, obviously.
Well, it's the same way as that Tua goes back and plays. It's not healthy. None of this is healthy. It's not supposed to.
We wouldn't have started doing it in the first place. If we were the type of people who's going to care that it wasn't healthy, we wouldn't have done it in the first place. And so listen, I just want to get that off and say that I'm now at the point I don't like the Titans. I'm full, and I've been here before with the Titans where it's like, all right, like they just got embarrassed by the Bills. It's like you can't hurt me anymore. They're going on. They're little screen now when I'm watching games. Like I don't even get the big. I put somebody else on the big screen. They go little screen. Every day I'm on Tankathon. You know what Tankathon is? Shows you the draft order.
It's just Tankathon.
It's called Tankathon. Look, it's great. It's a great website. I'm very accustomed to using it, and so I'm just following. It's like, okay, like who do I need to lose this week? Like I really need to honestly, the game I'm nervous about for the Titans coming up is we play the Patriots in a few weeks, and like we got to find a way to lose that game. We really got to lose that game because if we don't lose that game, they're getting the one pick. But if we lose that game, like I look through the Titans schedule, here's winnable games left. These are the only games that I'm now like I don't want us to win anymore, right? So like I now have to worry about the winnable games. We got to play the Jags twice, and we got to play the Pats. Those are the only 3 games I really see where it's like we maybe could win. And so we got to figure out a way to blow that Pats game. And we still got to hope Dougie P hangs around and then we don't get some dead cat bounce out of the Jags to where they might win. Because I want as high of a pick as I could possibly get. I'm full on hate the Titans, root against them mode. There's guys on the team I like, I'll root for them. But overall, in general, want them to lose, want bad things to happen to them. I hope we trade all the good players. Not like Jeff Simmons and like the young good players, but like DeAndre Hopkins got to go. Calvin Ridley should go. Probably can't trade him yet. And then like Brian Callahan, the coach, is like, I'm undecided on if I hate him yet or not. It's possible I hate him. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell if I hate him because the quarterback play has been so bad.
Seeing a little red too, right? So it's tough to know.
Yeah. Yeah, but like he's kind of, but like yeah, because we're losing, bro.
Yeah.
So it's like,
sure. Yeah.
it's like I need somebody to hold. And it's like and like the Will Levis thing of like, man, like I is so hard to defend him. And it's like I have for a while now, but he's like he just does like the way he plays is just so uncomfortable. And then so it's like well maybe it's not the coach's fault, but it's like but it's like oh my god, like we're getting our ass beat when Will Levis isn't playing either. We got Mason Rudolph in there, and it's like aren't you supposed to be? I don't know. And he comes out, it's like well we've always in my first year everywhere we've always been bad. It's like well maybe that's a problem, Brian. Maybe that's a problem.
That's a weird one to come
Lions
out.
didn't.
That's a weird argument to come out.
It's like we've always been bad.
Yeah, you see, which is related to like he's had success afterwards.
Yeah. No, that's great. What if we just won a couple of games, Brian? How about that?
Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. Well, yeah, now ship sailing the winning. Yeah, don't worry about it, Brian.
Yeah,
no, don't worry about it.
What you do
that's the other thing. That's the Chris Paul hits gigantic 3 to cut the lead to 42. It's like that's what it would be at this point if we were to win a game. It's like, well, don't even do it now. Yeah. So anyway, so that's it, man. That's the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Anybody who's new, again, thank you very, very, very much. We appreciate it. We are not ever going to charge for this. This will always be free. The Diceshaker is for the people. It's always been for the people. It will always be for the people. But you got to tell people. All right, man. That's the show.
I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper. It's up and down for